It is believed that God selects prophets who possess exceptional character, morals, and spirit. As God is all-knowing and all-wise, it is possible that he predestines who his prophets will be before their birth. Prophet Muhammad was no exception. He was known for his exceptional tolerance, which can be seen in his life and teachings. Truly, you, Muhammad, possess a high standard of character. Quran 68:4. In this video, we will take a look at instances of Prophet Muhammad's tolerance during the early days of Islam and during its expansion. During the first 13 years of his ministry in Mecca, Prophet Muhammad and his followers were persecuted by their opponents. Muslims were not permitted by God to fight back because of their small numbers and lack of military strength. This changed when the Muslims migrated to Medina, where their numbers and military strength rapidly grew. It was only then that fighting to defend themselves and the new religion was allowed. Despite the increasing persecution from his opponents, the companions of the Prophet asked him to curse them, but he replied, "I have not been sent to curse mankind, but to be a blessing unto them." Despite the continued unjust and cruel treatment by his opponents, Prophet Muhammad always prayed for them. He once decided to visit the village of Taif to invite its inhabitants to Islam. The people rejected him, stoned him, and made him bleed. The angel Gabriel appeared to him and told him that Allah had heard the people's words and rejection of him, and that the angels of the mountains were ready to obey whatever command he gave them. The angel of the mountains offered to crush the people between the two mountains of Mecca, but the Prophet instead prayed that Allah would bring forth future generations who would worship him alone and not associate anything else with him. During the early Meccan period, when the opposition to the new religion far outnumbered the Prophet's companions, it was common for his foes to try to disturb him while he prayed by whistling and clapping near him. But the Prophet never showed anger at these actions, instead choosing a policy of tolerance and avoidance of confrontation. One instance, when the Prophet was praying at the Kaaba and his enemies were closely watching him, one of his opponents placed the intestine of a slaughtered camel on his back during his prostration. The Prophet remained in that position and did not react. His daughter Fatima came to remove the filth and cleaned him. When Prophet Muhammad and many of his companions later migrated to Medina, his exceptional character in dealing with both his companions and enemies was further demonstrated. In Medina, Muslims were working to establish the new Islamic State, but their enemies in Mecca did not hesitate to wage war and pursue them even there. In the Battle of Uhud, when Meccan enemies attacked the Muslims, Prophet Muhammad sustained a head injury and lost his front teeth. Despite this, when blood started to seep from his head, he swabbed it, saying, "If a drop of my blood fell on the earth, those infidels will be destroyed by Allah." Umar urged him to curse them, but the Prophet replied, "I wasn't sent, by Allah, to curse. I was sent as a mercy." Then, he prayed, "O Allah, guide my people." Authenticated by Al-Albani, in this way, God confirms the blessed character of Prophet Muhammad, as he says, "And we have not sent you forth but as a mercy to mankind." Quran chapter 21, verse 107. The teachings of the Prophet Muhammad emphasize the importance of being a peaceful and compassionate person, who is considerate of others and avoids seeking revenge or retribution when wronged. He exemplified this principle through his actions, such as in an incident where a Bedouin entered a mosque and began urinating. Mosques at that time had no walls and carpeted floors, and the ceilings were palm leaves held up by palm stems. The people present were understandably upset, but the Prophet advised them not to interrupt the man and instead asked for a pitcher of water to be poured on the spot where he had urinated. This act displays his understanding and tolerance of the human nature, and the willingness to overlook and forgive mistakes. In a similar vein, the Prophet also reiterated the importance of loving and being kind to one's neighbors, even if they may engage in actions that are not pleasing to you. He said, "By God, he is not a believer, by God, he is not a believer, by God, he is not a believer, with whom his neighbors are not secure." This emphasizes the importance of treating others with compassion and understanding, even if they have wronged you in some way. In line with Jesus' famous saying, "Love your neighbor like yourself," Prophet Muhammad upheld the importance of this principle in the daily lives of believers and showed through his actions that it is possible to be peaceful and forgiving even in the face of hostility and wrongdoing. A Jew, who was reportedly a neighbor of the Prophet and held a strong dislike for him, would regularly throw trash on the Prophet's path. Despite this behavior, the prophet never rebuked or confronted the neighbor. One day, the neighbor was reported to be ill, and the prophet visited him to inquire about his health and show kindness. The neighbor was touched by this act of kindness and converted to Islam, putting an end to their previous hostility. The prophet's response to the hostility of his worst enemy was one of generosity and compassion.